this computer. So you are on the books. If you want to share something on the screen, being the
Okay.
computer genius guru that you are, I know you can do that. And
Okay.
hopefully I won't screw you up. Well,
Okay.
don't ask me.
Um,
Don't ask how to do that.
well, I just can't. Okay. I just sent your request to share my screen.
You're allowed. I've never had so
Okay.
much control. I don't have this kind of control with my wife.
Oh, geez. Okay. So, let me see where I am here. Um, share. Okay. So, first of all, what I want to say is, um, I I don't want this to be a lecture. I'd rather this be a discussion. Okay.
All I
And
have is
so,
something that says Zoom. Is that you?
yeah, and I'm trying to get to my thing. Hang on
Okay.
here. That's why I'm talking because I'm delaying because I can't figure out what I did wrong.
All
Um,
right, I like it.
how's that?
That's basically behind every man who did something is a woman who knows what he
Yes,
did and won't tell him.
yes.
There you
I
go.
got more crap up here
Not
that
not
I
as
have
a
no
not as
idea
a
what it is.
not as an insult, Michelle. Just wanted to let you know that one.
It's okay.
We're all just confused.
Okay. There. Can everybody see that?
Gotcha.
It says physical literacy. Okay. So anyway, what I started to say was one of the best teachers I ever knew and ever had was a guy that didn't like lecturing, and so he always told me. He said, I'd rather this be a discussion instead of a lecture. Okay, so feel free to disagree with me, to agree with me, to jump in where I'm wrong or I'm right, and let's make it more of a discussion because it's not like we have a time limit on this because none of us are going anywhere anytime soon.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'll just start it
So
off. You're full of shit. So there we go.
okay.
And we'll move forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
That's just the kind of feedback that I like. Okay.
Okay.
So physical literacy, I look at it as the missing piece to long-term athletic development. And actually, in the conversation that we just had, trying to get Larry hooked up here, um, uh, uh, we're going to talk about couple of those things in that about the schools and the different things. So I think I'll figure out how to make my. Oh,
I
there
gotta
it
go
goes.
find my water.
Okay,
Thunder,
I got
did
to figure out how to work this thing. I
did
thought I
you
had it
die?
figured out,
Did you
but
die?
okay. So, so when we talk about literacy, physical literacy, I think, I had to look up what's literacy because I had no idea. And so basically, it's the ability to read or write effectively, and it allows you to communicate and understand information and present it in various ways. And so, and there's all kinds of literacy. You can have, like it says here, numeracy, literacy, which is skills with math, and computer literacy. Danny, Danny, don't you work in financial services or
Yep,
something?
same
Yeah.
situation.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you have a doctorate in financial literacy, right? And
Of course.
basically, when we talk about physical literacy, we're talking. I can talk about some very basic things. Okay, I need to know I got to save my money, and I can't get overextended on bills and things like that. Okay, but you don't want to come to me to ask, how should I plan my financial future? So I have a basic literacy of that area, but if I really want to get into it and really know, I would go to somebody like Danny who can tell me, okay, you need to do this, and this for this period of time, right? And so, and that's basically when we talk about this initial physical literacy, that's what we're talking about doing is not necessarily making you an expert early on in any one area as we are making you a generalist in the beginning. And so, well, let's see, where's God dang it, I can't figure out how to do this. Oh, there it is. Okay, so again, literacy is I'm afraid to hit this thing. So the school subjects and is literacy, physics, physical education, history. You've got this huge wide ranging area of things that you need to learn. If Danny's parents didn't come out and tell him that you're going to be a financial planner and put him in the first grade and just teach him math and graphs and things. No, he taught him physics and history and art and all these other things, so that he could at least communicate with some people to get him to the point where, okay, I'm going to sit down and listen to you about your what you do. And so, okay on this, let's see what happens. If literacy is the foundation of what we know and learn about the world, then it stands to reason that physical literacy is about how we move in and around the world, and we use it every day. Just nobody, really thinks about it. Think about you guys that are teachers in a crowded hallway with kids passing. Now I know kids bump into one another, but there'd be a whole lot more crashes if they didn't have any kind of awareness of where they were in space. We use it in sports. Wrestling and is an example here. We also use it on the freeway. In driving, would be another example. You don't want me coming to California and driving you all around on those big highways with all that traffic. Now, you come to Bargersville, Indiana, where there's about 1,000 people and there's not a whole lot of traffic. I'm your man. But if I go to California, no, we're not doing that. I'm gonna have one of y'all drive. I'll have Pat drive me around or something.
All you need
Well,
is a handicap
well,
placard and you overcome everything.
well,
Handicap
maybe.
placard gives you all the right to do anything you want. Right, Larry? Larry can tell you that story.
My life
Well, so
flashed before my eyes.
so anyway, physical literacy obviously is not any sort of new concept. Okay, it goes back almost to the beginning of time. Ancient civilizations used it to train their warriors, for instance. Think about the ancient Greek Spartans. They took it was almost like the old Soviet sports schools. They took kids away when they were about 7 or 8, and they put them in a school, and they taught them gymnastics and wrestling and fighting and how to steal and all these different things to eventually become a warrior. And then they turn them out and let them go to battle. And what's really interesting is that from what I've read, the Spartans, they didn't let you fight in a major battle, or you didn't fight in your first battle until you were about 19 years old. So roughly about 12 years to develop you into a warrior where you could go out and fight a minor battle. And then you fought, and then if you didn't get killed, and you fought these minor battles and you didn't get killed, a couple of 3 years later, you're about 21, 22, 23 years old. They promoted you to where you could fight in the major battles. You got enough experience now. I found that really interesting because you see when people talk about long-term development, they talk about 8 to 10 to 12 years of preparation before you really get it and you really understand it. Even a sport like professional wrestling used to have a development process, and they would say for most people it would take about 8 to 10 years before they got what they called on top to be a top guy. And that meant you went through different territories that had different rules, different ways of wrestling and approaching things. and things like that. So yeah, I think that's really fascinating to me. And then of course we all know, the Eastern Bloc countries used it to train for the Olympic Games to get their propaganda over that they were much better and much stronger country than we were. And actually, Russia, when the communists first took over back in the 19 teens, Larry probably remembers that. Um, they they actually came up with the idea of developing their workers. Uh, I'm trying to think how they said this, but they actually would put one of the things they found important was education or physical education because it developed their workers for work and defense of what they call the mother country is the way they say it in the books. We see it in the motor learning books in colleges, and I just talked to one of my friends, who's a college professor in kinesiology at the local college here. And I said, "How come nobody's talking about this stuff?" And he said you can't believe that what we have to go through to get something changed like that. It'd take 10 years. So but anyway, the term physical literacy, as far as I can tell, was popularized by Dr. Margaret Whitehead in the late 1900s or 1990s or the 2000s. And what she said, she came in a paper she wrote, I think she wrote it. But anyway, it's called The Concept of Physical Literacy. It's in the British Journal of Teaching Physical Education. In 2001, and you can look it up if it's still up there. She says a lot of things in it, but over the years she's kind of redefined what she means by physical literacy. But I like this one the best as far as our purposes. And basically what she says is, looking very broadly, it could be suggested that the overarching characteristics of a physically literate individual are that the person moves with poise, economy, and confidence in a wide variety of physically challenging situations. Furthermore, the athlete or the individual is perceptive in reading all aspects of the physical environment, anticipating movement, needs, or possibilities, and responding appropriately to these with intelligence and imagination. That sounds like an athlete to me. I don't know about you all, but if I had kids that could do that, I'd win a lot of football games. But later on, she goes on and she says, a physically literate individual is a mover with a rich bank of established movement responses acquired through interacting with a wide range of challenging environments. So, what she's saying is what we talked about when we first started this little talk, is that we need this wide ranging form of education. And if you look at education from a school standpoint, isn't that what you do? You take things in steps. You teach them letters, then you teach them how to write it, then you teach them how to read it, and then you teach the numbers, and you teach them how to put them together, add them, subtract them, multiply them, divide, before you get to the more complicated things. And I'm assuming that's correct. And I was never a teacher. They didn't want me to be a teacher, and so but so my question has always been, why don't we do the very same thing with our athletes? If physical literacy is literacy just being physical, why don't we do the same things? And instead, as we know, and I'm kind of preaching the choir here, we throw them in and we expect them to play really well at a high level, and we put adult demands on top of them, which is never any good. So, what does physical literacy look like? Well, I don't know if you all can see this or not. For some reason, I can't find the one I had where you could actually read it, but you can see that The physical literacy is that she divides it it up into locomotor and body skills, which are walking, running, balance, skating, jumping, swimming, cycling, and skipping. Then you have sending skills, throwing, kicking, and striking. Okay, hitting a baseball, hitting a golf ball, throwing a football, those kinds of things. Then you have receiving skills, which are catching and trapping. The interesting thing about this thing is that if you notice, all of these skills should be learned by the time they're about 7 years old. After that, if they can't do it after that, they need, I call it special ed PE, for lack of a better term, because I don't know what a better term would be. Okay, then you have to have some remedial help. But if you look at all these things here, if you can do all of these things, you can play any game that's in town. All they have to do is teach you, right? And so, if I can catch and throw and strike something, I can hit a baseball. If I can strike an object with a racket, I can play tennis, racquetball, pickleball, whatever they're playing now. If I can ride my bike, I can go for bike rides. If I can swim, I can ski. I can go swimming. I can go fishing. If I get hot, I can jump in the lake as long as I can swim. So all these kinds of things. The other thing to notice is that this yellow, where these things are yellow, these are what's called, you might call them sensitive periods. We're going to talk a little bit about sensitive periods later. But sensitive periods are the best time for kids to learn these things because their brains are plastic. Now, if you don't learn these things, that doesn't mean you're necessarily behind. But if you wait till later to try to learn them, it's probably going to be much more difficult, and it's going to take you longer to learn them. So that's why they advocate for learning these things early on, and then you can see, the best times. And again, these are guidelines. Excuse me. These are guidelines for you to follow. If you don't start balance training till the kid's 5 or 6 years old, well, that's fine. Okay, I would do it earlier. Of course, they're learning, as they get up and walk and the different things like that. But I use it as a guideline. I think it's a great guideline. So, what are we doing? We're talking about building this encyclopedia of movement. Okay, and you've heard me talk about the encyclopedia of movement. And if some of y'all, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the old Encyclopedia Britannicas. It has a little guy that would knock on your door, and he'd come in and talk to your mom and dad about buying this encyclopedia. And they came in like 26 or 7 or 28, whatever it was, volumes of this stuff. And you weren't going to get a PhD on any of it, but what it did, it acted as an introduction to further study. If you go through and you just look at things, and you could go through and say you want to learn about, I don't know, aviation. Well, you go to encyclopedia, you take the number one, which was A, and you look up aviation and tell you all about airplanes and how they were formed and all this other stuff. Well, then if that struck your fancy, well, then you could go on and go however far you want to go with learning about aviation. So it's like physical literacy, it's a general study of things. This not working. Okay. So how do we build this? How do we build this encyclopedia? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. One is with mirror neurons. Okay, and all they are brain cells that activate when either we perform an action or we observe someone else doing the same action. You know, in the old, I don't know how they do it now, but in the old club coaches course that Lynn Jones wrote, the one thing he said was, you have to demonstrate how to do this lift. And, okay, well, I never thought of it as these mirror neurons, but if you know, but if you get, if you get kids to watch, they'll mimic what they see, and those are experiences. That's, I think that's part of the reason why mental imagery is so important, because you see it, okay, and it's brought back to your remembrance because it's in this encyclopedic library that you have of movement. The other way is just through trial and error, free play and pickup games. Okay, there's no better way for kids to learn, especially early on. Just show them how to do it, and then turn them loose. One of the best coaches I ever worked with was in a weight room was a guy. He's at University of Oklahoma now with their basketball team. A guy named Ty Terrell. He would teach a skill, and then he would have a game for them to play. It might be a sprinting drill. It might be a change of direction or something like that. But if he was working with a group, he always worked with a group of kids, so he always had competition going, and that was awesome. And here's I don't know if you guys have seen this little film. It's about these kids that lived on a I don't know what you call it, on a boat or something, but the whole community lived on the water. There was no land, and these kids wanted to play soccer. So what they did, they came up with an idea to build a soccer court or soccer field in the water. And so they went about, and parents helped them. They cut the boards and everything, painted the lines and everything, and they wound up going to a pretty big soccer tournament like in Thailand or something. And I don't think they won it, but they got like second or something. And it's an amazing little film. It's you can see it's PANYEE short film. It's like 5 minutes long, but it's great. But the parents didn't know anything about it, didn't know how to coach them or anything, and the kids just learned on their own. And they went and played and wound up doing really, really well in the competition that they entered. And it's really an amazing story. But you see them playing on this thing, and it would be slick, and so they would have to adjust to the slickness when it would rain or the water would splash up onto the surface. When they went to the tournament, one of the games they played was a pouring rainstorm, and everybody's having trouble figuring out what to do, except these kids, because they've been on wet surface all the time. So it's really a neat little video if you ever get a wild hair and watch it. It's on YouTube, I think. So how do we learn? Well, it's if we go back to our physical literacy chart, okay, we can see that every one of these skills can be taught by parents or introduced by parents. Some of them are taught in preschool or worked on in preschool. Some of them are taught in school. Some of them are organized sport, where you have coaches and things, and then some of them are just the community recreation, just free play where they're going and playing. And so so it's parents, teachers or coaches, and y'all have been teachers, y'all have been involved in all that stuff. No. So why do we need physical literacy? Well, 3 reasons that we can come up with is that exercise can spark new brain cell growth. Okay, and I forget where I saw this, but in the October of 2000, researchers from Duke University made the New York Times with a study showing that exercise is better than sertraline or Zoloft at treating depression. I've never seen exercise in an ad for exercise as treating depression. The only thing I've ever seen is Zoloft. That kind of tells you right there that maybe they don't have our best interest at heart. And there's always, with these medicines, there's always side effects to them. And so the other thing that exercise can do is it can significantly improve behavior by reducing anxiety and depression. And the internet is full of examples where schools went back to letting the kids have 3 or 4 recesses a day, plus physical education. And one school I read reported 80% less behavioral problems. They had less fights, less disagreements, arguments, teacher problems with students and things like that, just because they let them go outside more. And I've got a 10-year-old that's got some anxiety problems, and I told my daughter, I said, tell the school to call me and I'll take her outside, because she doesn't have any problems when she's outside playing on her playground. And I asked her the other day, I said, honey, how many recesses do you get a day? They get 1 for a 10-year-old. And I said, how long is it? She goes, I think about 30 minutes. Oh, that's probably close to being right. And so, that's ridiculous. Kids need to be outside, especially boys. It's been proven that boys need to be outside, not put on drugs to calm them down so they don't fidget. Okay, you give them something to do.
He literally jumped over my head to get to the McDonald's guy.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you say it again?
No, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just.
I think Danny's talking to somebody.
Oh, no, that was my daughter. She's in a room.
Oh, okay. So, if we don't have good physical literacy, we're going to have a tough time finding something that they will enjoy doing. Okay, so that's why it's important to give them all this encyclopedic information of movement, so they can pick and choose what they want to do. I firmly believe, now I can't prove this, but I think that there is a sport for everybody. You just got to find it. Right now, it may not be football, basketball, or baseball, or hockey, or wrestling or boxing or something like that. It may be what they have games now, professional tag. It may be that. Well, that's fine, right? I think tag's a great game. It may be. I was at the Olympic Training Center one time in Colorado Springs. And I watched badminton for an hour and a half. I watched them practice. And the thought ran through my mind is that this is nothing like we play in the backyard. So, there's a sport for everybody. We have to give them the opportunity to find it. Mm-hmm. So, sensitive periods. Okay, these are fun. Okay, Joseph Drobick in his book Children in Sports Training defines or says that sensitive periods are periods in human life when the organs and systems that determine a given ability, balance, speed, endurance, etc., are undergoing intensive development. It is then that they are the most receptive to a training stimulus developing that ability. Kind of what we talked about earlier with our chart. And the reason for this is because the brain is so much more plastic during these times. And it's as I said, it's much easier to learn the skill. If you get outside of that time, it's going to be a little bit tougher. Okay, you can still learn it, but it's going to be harder to take longer. And so here is give you a couple examples I took out of the same book. these are from the Russian, and if you look at um, uh, some of these now, I'll talk about that in a minute, but absolute static strength. Okay, it's low until they get until the girls are 10 or 11, the boys are about 3 years behind. Um, so the H obviously stands for high, and the M stands for medium, and the L stands for low. I don't know if you can see all this, but um, uh, speed, strength, standing broad jump, static endurance, um, dynamic strength, endurance, uh, and anaerobic endurance, 500-meter run. Okay, and you can see that not all these things. One of the interesting things is speed. To about 10, they're high for both of them. From about 7 to 10, then it drops off a little bit. Then it picks back up for females at about 13 in the Russians. Now, again, you got to remember these are for the Russian population that they looked at. Your population may be different. So the one thing I always stress to people is that use these as guidelines, okay? Because your population is different. Now, one thing I would really like to see is somebody do the same research and see the maturation between the inner city black kids and the suburban white kids. I'd really like to see that study and see how far off the two are, if they are. The other group of sensitive periods came from the Germans that Dravik put in his book, and the more pluses, the higher the intensity for it to learn. But I mean, since we're all involved in this, let's look at maximal strength. Okay, females, it starts, and it's low, but it starts about 12 to 14. It doesn't start in males until they're 14 to 16.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then at 16 to 18, the females, it becomes very high. It doesn't become very high until 18 to 20 for males. I ask you this, you guys involved in weightlifting, what in the crap are we doing having a 12 and under, 14 and under national championship? You can ask Ursula that question, Pat.
I kind of brought it up, but Shiz will answer that.
I know that. I've already asked it. So explosive strength is the same thing. Okay, maybe a year or so sooner, but explosive strength is not necessarily from weights. It can be jumping onto boxes, off boxes, things like that. And then they break it up into strength endurance, aerobic endurance, anaerobic endurance, things like that. Notice speed of reaction starts very early. Maximal speed starts pretty early. Coordination starts really early, 5 to 8 years old, which leads me to believe that coordination, and we're going to talk about it in a minute here, is probably the key to all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure, but I think it is. Okay, and you can see that it goes on for a really long time, 20 and over. Okay. One thing I looked up, oh gosh, I don't know how long ago this was, Pat, I forget, but roughly about 20 years ago, Pat and I were talking, and he told me to look up PE standards in Indiana. So I did, and it was like a half-page article that I could find on the internet. And so then I looked up California, and they had this huge document that was like I don't know, it was like 72 pages. It went from grade 1 to grade 12, and it had well, I'll show it to you here. And it had can you all still see this? I'm hoping. Okay, open up here. Okay, we'll wait. But anyway, it had all these things. I mean, spelled out. You know, at this age, they should be able to run and walk and do a somersault and things like that. Oh, here it is. Okay. So can you all see this? The physical education model content standards. It goes down and let's see, where are we? Page 5. I just want to show you one real quick thing, but so here you go for kindergarten. Travel within a large group without bumping into others or falling while using locomotor skills. It could be walking, could be running, could be jumping, could be hopping. Doesn't matter what it is, right? And so this is how they break it up into all these different things for each grade level. Now, Pat, I don't know what this 1.1 and 1.2 is. Can you tell me what that means?
They're just a standard.
Is that just a progression?
They're called standards.
Standards, okay.
Every subject has a list of standards. These are the standards that they expect to be done. These are supposed to be taught, like you say, in first grade.
Okay.
All of this stuff. You can all start
Okay,
laughing now.
Yeah. So as you can see, and and I'm sure that these weren't brought up yesterday. I think this document was 2005 or something. And it goes through each age group like that. Okay. And so and so each one has it. The one that really surprised me was Alabama. And the one thing about all these that I looked up, so Alabama even calls it physical literacy for a lifetime. That's a Canadian thing, and they break it up pretty much the same way. See here, and it's a 122-page document.
This is Alabama.
I'm sorry.
Alabama.
Alabama's state standards.
Yes. And in this particular one, they even talk about that PE cannot replace recess, and recess cannot replace PE.
That's in California.
So you got to have both of them. In Alabama.
That's
in Alabama. Is that in California also, Pat?
That's the Ed code in California. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I didn't have time to read all these things, but anyway, so and again, it's pretty much the same types of things where they have where they have the 1.1 things and it's a progression. It looks like or standards, whatever Pat called it. I can't remember now.
Go back to California, Grant. I'll show you an interesting one part of California. Okay, go up to when they first start talking about it, because this is very interesting in California. Right about, keep going, okay, down. Okay, now go down here just real slowly, because you'll see this one part that's really interesting. Okay, it says physical education right there. The model content standards for the state of California affirms standing of physical education. Rigor is essential to achievement. Participation is not the same as education. And we have totally gone away from that to throw the ball out, let everybody pass. Let's make it real easy. And that is not in the standards. But you'll have every principal in California that'll tell you that it doesn't even exist because they don't want to do it.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So, and I think that. So what after kind of glancing at all these and I just kind of randomly picked these things. I even picked Alaska, Nevada, because I think I can't remember, but somebody's from Nevada. I think Las Vegas. Then I picked Minnesota, and they all pretty much read the same. Okay, so if you look at Minnesota's, Larry, it's going to be pretty much the same thing.
Probably. The tragedy is these standards are here,
Yeah.
and in some way, shape, or form, use your presentation is on physical literacy. And I'm sure there are excellent programs run by excellent individuals, but a vast majority of a lot of PE people, you could you could hire a custodian who could dust the floor and change the light bulbs and do the same quality of instruction as many of these individuals. And what an insult.
Yep.
And it's either extreme laziness, or I don't know what the other. It can't be lack of information, because there's a vast amount of information out there if someone has the passion to improve their profession.
You know what I really think it is, Larry? I think it is that a lot of these teachers are tired of fighting the battle. The battle is don't do it. The administrators don't support it. In California, for example, the law states you must provide a separate area for kids to dress for physical education. So what they try to do is they say, well, we just won't dress because of the gender thing, and they don't want to do it, all this other crap. Well, the bottom line is that is not the point. The point is you cannot lock up those locker rooms because the law says you can't do that. You have to provide that area for the kid that wants to. So if you got one kid, you got to have the locker room open. And that's the point. But see, what they want to do is they don't want to do it, and the administrators are not supporting it, and that's what they do. And I'm sure that's true all the way across the country.
Yeah, I agree. There's been I don't know, a complete drop of the ball. Physical literacy, physical education, whatever the words you want to use, should be a vital component to a child's total education. And they have miserably failed. It's not maybe a fail, it's miserably failed. Now, there are good teachers and there are good programs in the country, but it is what, 1%, 2%?
Probably. But the other thing, and I want Grant to finish, is that in California, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, before COVID, Dr. Baldus at Fresno State said our problem is we went to, and what's crazy is I know Fresno State wasn't this way 20 years ago, but they developed all of this stuff on kinesiology and exercise science. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what we did? We stopped teaching kids how to teach motor movement.
Mm-hmm.
So we are graduating kids that want to go be PE teachers, but they got a degree, they got a degree in kinesiology or exercise phys. Now they go out and go take a standardized testing thing to get able to teach physical education. And they don't know how to teach movement, which is addressed in those tests, because we didn't teach it. And he says, and it's like, what did you say, Grant? Takes 10 years to change. Well, that's where we're at. We need to change. We need to make those changes.
Yeah, and actually, I was going to say, I'm just looking at this from a parental lens, and I'm just, amazed. And it's sort of like, why aren't the parents holding the teachers and administrators accountable? I mean, if they've got standards and it's not being met.
They don't know.
I know they don't know. I didn't know it existed. So I'm just like,
yeah,
wow.
That's my point exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known it existed until Pat told me.
Yeah.
40 years ago, I got a degree. I got my master's degree. So one night, I walk in, and it's, I don't know what class it was, but we're there. There's like 4 or 5 of us were coaches, and he looks at me and says, Pat, what's the biggest problem with kids walking on a college campus today? I'm a football coach. I go, I don't know, math, science, reading. Nope. Asked everybody in class. Nobody had the right answer. He says lack of critical thinking skills. And I had a kid that he's probably about 30, 35 right now, and he works with basketball players. And he made a comment a week or two ago, and he said, "What's wrong with these people? Don't they have any common sense? Or what? They don't have a clue." Parents. And I said, Mo, and I told him that story about 40 years ago. I said, Mo, what that guy was talking about 40 years ago were your parents and all the parents of all of you guys who didn't teach your kids critical thinking skills. They put them in schools in which the teachers did not teach them how to think, they taught them what to think. And they taught them based on an ideology. And the ideology doesn't work. And now those people raised you. He goes, "You're right, that's me. That's me. That's me." And you're right. Those are all of my friends that are now raising the next generation. And I said, that's what you have to change. So, and when you look at all the stuff that you go back to Grant's, the one with all the colors, it's interesting that every one of those things was home, preschool, school, and community and around the community. And the last part of it came into sports.
Mhm.
And what's the problem? We have ignored all of it through home, preschool, school, and community, just playing on the park because we don't let them go out anymore. And the only place they get it is these sports programs. And then they hammer them into one sport, pay me a lot of money, and I'll get your kid a scholarship, which is a lot. And we keep paying. We have a multi-billion-dollar industry based on that. Go ahead, Brent. I'm gonna let you keep going now. I just one of the things I wrote down.
No, I mean this is what I want. I want discussion about this. This is
Yeah.
because I'm learning stuff. I've been thinking about this for 2 weeks, and one thing I want to ask Larry, and this is not a shot, Larry, but you're kind of the senior member here. What was the gym class like when you started
Um,
teaching or coaching?
yeah, first of all, smaller numbers.
Right.
And I started teaching on what's called the Iron Range in northern Minnesota. And back then, the schools were pretty well financed because all the mining companies had huge taxes that went directly, or a lot went into the school system. So the equipment was pretty decent. You know, we did, or I did as a elementary PE teacher when I started, some basic movement stuff. But I wish back then I knew what I know now. um, Communication, finding sources of information, finding sources to connect was, as I remember, was very limited. And
Right.
it was a true effort to just find stuff. I truly don't think that my college certainly didn't prepare me for my job. Yeah, you got a degree behind your name and you've got some initials behind your name, et cetera, et cetera. But like in most places, it's on-job training. And the behavior and respect back then is much different than it is today. And when I started, it was in a smaller community, and that makes a huge difference. When I moved into the Twin Cities in the early or mid 60s, still things were pretty calm compared to today. But my
Were the
job in Burnsville at the junior high level back then was 7, 8, and 9, and there were 13 full-time physical education teachers on our staff. Every kid
Wow.
we didn't have first grade or kindergarten back then, but from first grade to 10th grade, they had physical education every day from first to 10th grade. That was mandatory.
Wow.
And 11th and 12th, it was elective. And that stayed, oh my God, until Sputnik went up. And then, oh my God, the school board and the state and the Department of Education and the world went, oh, we're way behind academically, so we have to cut. So, and the first of all the dumbest things they did is they started to cut our elementary. There was a full-time physical education teacher in every elementary school. Every elementary kid had, and it was instructional. I mean, these teachers did an absolute awesome job of teaching fundamental movement skills. When they came to us in the junior high, it's like, oh my God. I mean, it was remarkable. And as a discipline, the elementary and the junior high and the senior high staff had a meeting every month. And then every department at every school usually had some kind of a meeting before school or after school at least once a week. I mean, and I've said this before, there are three things that I think make a program work. And I don't care if it's a sport, and I don't care if it's a business or whatever. It's information, education, and communication. And when you have all three working, I might not agree with you 100% on what you say, or you might not agree with 100% with what I say. But together, we both may have to compromise on something so we can meet some kind of agreement. And the interesting thing, we're talking about physical literacy and long-term athletic development, which Bellier coined or developed or created in Canada in the early 90s. But a good a good LTAD program or physical literacy is nothing more than a good physical education program. That's really what.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I tried to point out with these different states'
Right.
standards. All that is in physical literacy.
Yep.
Is what it took me an hour to get to, right? What I should have done was just gone to this and say, here it is right here, right?
No, I think what you'll do though is if you look at, because this is one of the first things I thought I wrote down, is if you look at all these PE programs, it isn't quoting Whitehead, but it's pretty much what Whitehead was saying about what is what's a physically literate person, and they all talk.
The point is that it was already being done before she coined the term.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Before the Eastern Europeans made it popular, it was already being done.
Right.
It was big time in the US.
and I don't know that. Well, they called it PE, I guess, here in the United States. Here's a. I don't know if you can see this book, but here's a book I picked up. It was written, I think, in 1987, I believe, and it's all the same things that are in this, the same things I talked about earlier. It's all in this book, and I think this is written by a guy named Gabbard. Does that name ring a bell to anybody?
Name's familiar, but if you look at the
Carl Gabbard
La Sierra program, which was
it's the same thing.
60s, the La Sierra program, one of the things that guy will tell you is they had not coaches teaching PE, they had physical education teachers. They weren't necessarily coaches. They were physical education teachers. Yep. And if you look at what they're doing, and that goes back, everybody kind of thinks John Kennedy was the guy, but it was really Eisenhower. Eisenhower started this thing because he came out of World War II and he realized some of the problems that they had with guys going into World War II and just fitness levels of the soldier. And you
And
got
it
to
was bad
remember
then,
that
but it was bad then, but can you imagine what the conditions are today?
one of the worst injury problems in the military is boot camp.
Mhm.
Boot camp. They get
Well,
hurt.
even
can't
how
do
many
it.
can qualify? What are we down to? A
One or
third
two.
can't, or
Probably
50% can't?
less than 10% can really qualify. That's why recruiters have become personal trainers. Recruiters are literally taking 6 weeks, 8 weeks before they go to boot camp, and they're putting them through a training program to make sure that they're ready for boot camp. Because part of their, believe it or not, part of their, I guess, uh, um, ratings for being a recruiter is whether guys make it through boot camp. So that's really
Yeah.
important to them. So that is a key. But see, we stopped doing all that stuff. I haven't found a PE teacher yet that would tell me if I showed him that La Sierra film and stuff they did, I wish we could do that. I haven't found anybody did want to do that. It's just whether you get out and do it, and sometimes you just got to buck the system, and that's the sad part is, and that's why, I don't know what all your politics are. I know you're probably conservative like me, but that's what I like about Robert F. Kennedy. He says we're going to address chronic disease in this country. This is our problem. It's leading to so many things, and it starts with physical education. But the Department of Education is not supporting it. The Department of Education is a waste of money. It's a waste of money. It's like I don't know how many $1 trillion in the 50 years that we put into this thing. And what have we accomplished? Our kids are, most of the fourth graders can't read at fourth grade level. Most of the eighth graders can't read or do math at eighth grade level. It's a failure. In a private sector, the Department of Education would have gone bankrupt because it's a failure. They would have just fired everybody because
Well,
it's a failure.
quite frankly, the system or whatever you want to call it is broke. It needs to be changed in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form. And I have no idea how to, I mean, it's easy to criticize when you don't have a solution. But the idea, Pat, you talked about, I believe you talked about the Marine training base. And there is a group going through every 8 weeks or 16 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And for the individuals that can't make it, you just go back and recycle. And maybe that's what needs to be done in education. If you can't make it, recycle.
Yeah, that was something I didn't even know. And that was a guy, Marcus, this guy that I know, he's been in 26 years, but he said if they had a guy that was like supposed to graduate this Friday, because every Friday there's a graduation. And he said, so maybe this guy's 2 or 3 weeks behind. They don't run him through the whole boot camp again. They just go over and say, hey, I got this guy, and you guys are 3 weeks out. In 3 weeks from now, he's going to be fine. But he's not ready right now. And they just move him back there. And then they push them back through. And we don't do that because we came up with this idea that, if we fail them, it's going to hurt their self-esteem and they're going to fail in life and all this other crap. And I could go on and on. Go ahead, Grant. Go. I don't know how many more you got. Go to the next one.
No,
Did
it's great.
did you see
Go
where
ahead.
there was, I saw it on television somewhere. There's some woman, I don't even know what state, she's suing the district because she was given, she was at graduation, she graduated with honors and she can't read.
Yeah. Wow.
That's surprised. Well, and when I say it's interesting that a lot of this stuff's at home, I would have two situations with my children that you would probably today I would be called the meanest guy in the world, and parents would be going crazy. And what kind of nutcase are you? My daughter And I wanted my kids to be resilient. I wanted them to be able to get back up and get back in the fight, you know. That's a kind of a crude way of putting it, but I walk into a soccer game one night with my daughter because I was coming from school and they'd already played. And it's about, I don't know, it's the second half, and she's got her foot up on a bench and she's got an ice pack. I said, "What'd you do?" She sprained my ankle. I said, "Tape it and go back in." She goes, "Nobody in here knows how to tape it." I said, "Okay, I'll tape it." So I taped it, sent her over to the coach, and she was ready to go back in. Only problem is she could hardly walk. And what I found, you know, is that she had a spiral fracture of the fibula when I took her to the doctor. So I'm a cruel, mean guy, but my daughter said, "Dad, tape it up. I want to go back in." That's what I wanted from her. I wanted her to be able to get up and go back in and go get back in the fight, get back in the battle. Now, my son, there's another one, and I was talking to my son about this yesterday, about what I wanted to do. My son, at one point in time when he was in high school, they were lifting before school. Well, that was great because I could go in and help him out, you know, and I knew the D coordinator, he was running the weight room. So we're in there, and Nick's doing like, I don't know, 105 kilo snatch. They were doing like heavy maxes type lifts. And so he loses his balance, goes forward. The bar hits him in the back and literally smacks his face into the platform. And, you know, might have had a broken nose. There was a little blood. And I told him to get back up and go make the lift. And his coach looked at me, and the kids in that room said, I said, "Get up and make the lift." What was I teaching my son? Rub some dirt on it. Get back in the fight. And my kids, both, you look at both of my kids, and they have, my daughter's got 2 master's degrees. She teaches in college. She works professionally as a psychologist. My son's got a master's degree and a PhD in exercise in kinesics. And he's the head track coach and the head physical education of his PE department, and he runs their strength program. So obviously, they learned how to get back in the fight. We don't do that today. We don't teach that anywhere. You know, we sure as hell can't do it in school, because the bottom line, if we do it in school, the teacher's a mean, horrible person. If we do it at home, hell, our neighbors want to sue us and call CPS. You know, I mean, we have literally, I don't know, somebody called it the wussification of children in today's society, you know, and I think we've done that. We have literally created this problem. And yeah, we need to change. As Larry said, we are failing and we need to change because we don't get it. We don't get it. And honestly, I say this all the time. God bless the United States Marines, because if it wasn't for those guys, you know, there's one thing around the world, if you're going to get into a battle, it's like, oh shit, they're sending the Marines. They do not want to see.
Well, Pat, here's what the bottom line is. I'm doing paperwork as you're listening. Think about this. Valor has been replaced by cell phones and social media.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Until we get rid of those goddamn cell phones and social media, we're not going to change. Kids got to go out and get bullied, get their ass kicked once a week so they understand. Sorry.
And you know what's interesting?
Yeah. No, I remember a
You're
little.
not being sensitive.
Well, I was
I
gonna say a
know.
little story like that. What you guys were talking about. I remember my daughter first playing soccer. And it was co-ed soccer. They were like 3 years old, 4 years old, and one team was like 2 boys, 1 girl, and she was on one team. It was 2 girls and a boy, and the 2 boys in the opposing team were kind of ganging up on my daughter a little bit and knocked her over, and she started crying. And I went over to her and I said, "Don't let the boys push you around. Be faster than them." And let me tell you, she went back in that game and kicked those boys' butts.
Good.
My daughter,
When my son was
My
playing
daughter-
All-American football, my daughters would come to practice.
Mhm.
And the other kids that are hanging around, that, you know, they're all just start playing football because it's fun. So my daughter comes to me and said, "Dad, what's a straight arm?" And I showed her, I said, "You know, when you're running back, you kind of punch them in the face." She goes, "Oh, okay." Some little boy comes back crying. I said, "What's the matter?" "Your daughter hit me in the face." I said, "What'd you do?" "Jillian, what'd you do?" "I straight armed him, just like you taught me." So there you go.
my daughter's high school
You want to play
soccer team.
football? You don't have to be big.
My daughter's high school soccer team the boys' soccer team would not play them. They wouldn't play them. They refused to play them. They were 2 years league champions. The better part of them went to the same community college. They were conference champions. The boys didn't want any part of them because they went on a soccer field and it was the game and it was like everything's legal. And they were just that the way they were, and it's interesting when you talked about multiple sports learning thing. Did you see Illinois play this weekend? Illinois basketball?
I
Did you
didn't.
did you see what their point guard, and Barkley said this. He goes, I've never seen this in all my years of basketball. He goes, I've seen tailbacks and quarterbacks. He goes, but a point guard who was a linebacker,
Oh yeah.
the point guard at
That's
Illinois
not a good combination.
was a linebacker in high school. And I'm going,
Wow.
this guy's got two potential pro careers in front of him. If he doesn't make it in basketball, he'll go play football and he'll play. It's like, wow, and it's really crazy. Go ahead, Grant, go ahead. Are you done? You got more?
Oh, I've got more. Just whether you guys want to keep going. Just let me just show you this one thing. I don't know if I showed you. I can't remember if I showed you this before. So the Russians have this thing called GTO, and I'm sure you all have heard of it. And it stands for Work in Defense. And so these are standards that, as far as I can tell, everybody in the country has to take. And it goes from 6 and 7 years old all the way up to 70 and above. And they have different events and they have different standards for each one. And they used to do it, and I used to read about it in the Russian manuals that Bud wrote, that Bud translated. But they used to do it, and then when communism fell, they got away from it. And about, I don't know, 10 years ago, Putin decided that we're getting out of shape. We can't defend the country. We need to go back to these standards. And so I did some research on them, and they've been around for like since 1920s or 30s, and they actually get medals for these things. They get a gold, silver, and a bronze medal. It's a real nice medal if they meet these standards. And so this is, just to give you an example, this is for 6 and 7 years old. So they got 10-meter sprint, 30-meter sprint, and the boys are on the left, the girls are on the right. They've got a 6-minute run, and it's how far you can run or walk in 6 minutes. Okay, and then you can see, I won't go through all of them, but you can see, and then they have what qualities they're testing for. So the sprint's obviously high speed possibilities, endurance, speed, strength capabilities. There's an 1 kilo medicine ball overhead throw, sit ups, standing long jump, flexibility, coordinating abilities, throwing a tennis ball to target, and things like that. And then they have recommendations for weekly motor activity, at least 9 hours a week. And I think ours is like an hour a day, so like 4 or 5 hours a week. And they what's interesting is they break it up. So they have morning gymnastics or calisthenics, for like 60 minutes a week, 5 times a day for 12 minutes. You're talking about 6 and 7 year old kids, right? And then you've got all these other things down here, and then you go to the 12-year-olds, the 12 and 13-year-olds, and once again, so we have a little. We're testing for some of the same things. We have different tests. Okay, now I don't know too many kids that I have, boys that can do 8 pull-ups. Okay, I don't know any of them can do 24 inverted rows. Okay, but so you can see it. So these are national standards, and they have tests, and so I mean they even start shooting at 12 years old with an air rifle, which I find kind of interesting. And then again, so now you can see they've increased to 15 minutes a day of morning gymnastics. Okay, and then you can see what they've done here. So those are, those are what Russia's doing to get their soldiers and their workers ready to do work and things like that. So just kind of add on to the conversation. I wasn't going to bring that up, but
You look at the La Sierra program. They had a warm up that they do every day. It takes 15 minutes. All you got to
Yep.
Google it, and then YouTube it, and you'll watch it. You can see it, what they did every single day for 15 minutes at the beginning of every PE class. And it's really fascinating because it's all of that stuff that you're talking about, right? All that gymnastics, push-ups,
Yep.
back around, over, up, stand up, jumping jacks, all this stuff that today, hell, 90% of the kids in a PE class would be dead. If we asked them to do that, they'd just freaking die. But this was done every single day in those PE classes. So it's very similar. Very similar to that.
I've got the standards here somewhere for that, but anyway, I won't take time to look at them now. So anyhow, we've kind of know that it's important to be able to do all that. I can't tell you how many kids I have that can't jump rope. Just the simple act of jumping rope that I thought everybody could do, they don't. So what does this physical from a training standpoint? What does physical literacy look like, or what can we do? Okay, so the first thing that we've looked at and we saw on our sensitive period sheet was.
It's real quick.
Yeah.
Let's say 10 more minutes, and if we want, as a group, we can say we can finish this next time. But I don't want to drag everybody out too long. Is that good?
No, yeah, that's fine. I'm almost done anyway, so I'll go through this real quick.
Go.
So the first one was coordination. That was the first one on the German sensitive period sheet. Okay, and all it is it's a harmonious functioning of muscles or groups of muscles in the execution of movements. Okay, and so God dang it. It's basically the ability to perform complex movements. And also to quickly learn movements and to quickly switch from one set of movements to another, which is basically your change of direction or your agility. Okay, the thing I found interesting was that this coordination includes balance, a sense of rhythm, spatial orientation, kinesthetic differentiation, and reactivity to acoustical and visual signs. When was the last time that you had kids working on rhythm? Okay. Or balance. Now, granted, some of that we get, right? But when did you do it? The last time, just as a separate entity. The next quality is endurance, and endurance is the ability to continue to do work at a specific intensity. Okay, maybe sprinting as hard as you can for 100 meters. It may be running, or it may be swinging a sledgehammer all day. Obviously, you're not going to swing it really fast or really often, or you're going to do it really often, but it's not going to be it's not going to be as fast as you can, right? It's going to be spaced out. It's going to be to a rhythm. You know what? I don't know if it's politically correct or not, but what about the old Negro work songs or the prison work songs? They were done to a rhythm, or the cadences in the military. They're done to a rhythm. And what it does, it actually makes the work easier because it's done in a rhythm, and you can do it for longer with less fatigue. And
Yeah,
then endurance. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say real quick to that one point, because we discovered that kind of in our kettlebell class for snatching
Yeah.
20 reps a minute.
Yep.
If you play Guns N' Roses, Pour Some Sugar on Me, you can just get in this rhythm and you're exactly 20 reps a minute, just smooth.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, but
Well,
it's true.
well. There's actually websites that you can enter a song in, and it will tell you how many beats per minute the song is.
Mhm.
So you can do it, or what I, because I don't know music, I use a metronome with a lot of things for kids.
Mhm.
So if we're like learning to squat, or we're jumping rope or something, I'll just put them on a metronome, just have different cadences with a metronome, and it's great. I mean, you learn things like that. Um, but also, anyway, endurance can either be long or short duration, and it can be either speed or strength endurance. Okay.
Grant,
Yeah. Yes.
will you go back 2 slides a minute?
Sure.
Right there.
Uh-huh.
Your spatial orientation, what do you, uh, what, uh, what do you decipher as that?
I interpret it as, where you are in relation to things.
Okay. Okay. I wasn't arguing. I just wondered how you classified it.
How would you classify it?
Well, one of the things that we do in movement is there are only 4 directions that we can go: linear, lateral,
Right.
diagonal, and vertical.
Yeah.
And I to teach a kid to be aware of these, I think they have to move in these directions.
Yes.
But I just wondered how you deciphered that. That's all I asked.
Yeah. No. I think it's that, but also, where am I in relation to things?
Okay.
I mean, there's kinesthetic differentiation, but I think the spatial orientation also is, how, how the only thing I can think of right now is, how do I cut a guy off,
Okay. Yeah.
running down the sideline? What
Okay.
what direction do I have to go? Do I run at him? It's like shooting a bird.
Yeah.
Do I
Okay.
shoot at the bird, or do I shoot ahead of the bird? Am I correct on that, Larry? Or am
Yeah.
I screwed up?
Nope.
It's
If
falling
you
Okay.
down in one of those
if it's
directions.
moving in a lateral direction, yeah, you better lead it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going to
Hey,
get hungry.
so is
Yeah.
falling down one of those directions, depending on whether I go linear or forward or backwards? When I fall down, is that one of that, or is that a whole different direction that comes along after 70?
I'm sorry, Pat. I didn't hear that.
When I fall down, as we get
Oh,
older, we fall down, right? So is that part of one of those directions, falling down?
it could
If
it
you have a
could
life
be.
alert, I fall and I can't get up.
The worst thing is, can you get up?
Well, that's the problem.
Well,
That's
we
vertical.
laugh about that, but being able to know how to fall and what it feels like to be in those positions is very important, especially as we get older.
Yes.
And
Even
so,
kids, even
yeah,
kids need to know
yes,
how to fall.
that's why things like tumbling and wrestling, or judo, or or martial arts or something like that
You
Yep.
learn to fall.
is very important. Plus, you get a feeling of where you are in space.
Mhm.
Okay, I can remember, after not having done anything like that for a number of years, and I started wrestling. The first time I went upside down, I had no idea where I was going. And I think, geez, oh Pete, you got to be kidding me. But I got it back fairly quickly. But well, I had to. But um, uh, that's one instance that stands out. But if you don't know, and if you don't know where you are in space, when you're falling, you could get seriously hurt, right?
Right.
And in wrestling they call it taking a bump. Well, you got to know how to
Life-
fall, but you also got to know where you are to be able to take the bump properly. So go ahead.
Even at my age, if I do trip and fall, I roll. I do.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah, yep,
I look at
yep,
it those old monkey rolls we used to do about hitting and rolling. I don't just
yep.
fall down, put my hand out there. I roll. I roll with it. I had to admit.
Yeah, so yeah, it's like um, it's like when somebody throws a ball real hard at you. What do? You absorb the force of the ball, right? Or they go to punch you or something. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You just have to know, what you're doing and how to counteract it. Well, that's all part of all this physical literacy things that we talk about that kids don't get anymore.
That's right.
Okay, I'm at 6:30. Where's everybody at?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and defer the rest till the next meeting, Pat?
I got like one slide.
Okay, go for it.
So, okay, so speed, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the other one is strength. And where is it? Yeah, there it is. So there's slow, fast, and explosive strength, or ways to use dynamic strength of slow, fast, or explosive. So there you go. That's any questions? I'm supposed to ask. Are there any questions? So
Anybody got anything?
I'm good.
The only thing that
Okay.
I think we've already said it. Like I say, the concept of whitehead seems to be everywhere. Um, the thing when you were talking about exercise and stuff like that with psychiatric stuff or mental health, it's interesting. Ratty, who's a psychiatrist, wrote the book,
Yep.
and he
Mark.
said that exercise is the number one non-prescription drug for ADHD. So that has been proven. So what we find is everything that we have is research based, and I think we're pretty much all in agreement that the education system is failing in that whole thing. What I would like, Grant, is this is a PowerPoint presentation, right?
It's
PowerPoint?
Google Slides, yeah.
Okay, can you send me all those if it's okay? I'll put those up on the website and I'll put it out on our Substack. I have a Substack account also now, so I can put stuff out, and I would like you to put that on yours because you have a website that you write on, Rufus, what is it, Rufus Weightlifting or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, put it on there and I'll take it off of there.
Okay. Well, I'll have to send it to you because you have to share it.
Okay,
So
yeah,
it's going to be. I don't know. I don't know how to ask Nick or somebody how to get it off.
okay,
So,
yeah,
but
just send it to me,
I'll share as a Google thing.
and yeah.
And, if you all don't mind, send me a comment on whether you liked it or not, or what I can improve, because I don't
Okay.
do these often enough to be any good at them. So,
Okay.
Hey, Pat, something I would do, and Chauncey made this observation. Sometimes I'm starting to read, I do this in the newspaper. There's an article. I'll read the first couple sentences of the first paragraph. Then I decide if I want to read more. So when I go to a website, it'll say topic, physical literacy. And I'll start reading the paragraph and say, now read more. Now, why would you do that? You get more content on there because you can say physical, and you can have a lot more stuff. But if you have one thing take up a whole page, then you kind of run out of room. And websites are like that. So see if you can do it to where it's like you got the first paragraph, so you get the interest. Now I want to read more. Click on the button, you can read the whole article.
That's kind of how those posts go. I noticed, it kind of tells you what the post is, and then you have to click on it to get the
to read
information.
more. Exactly. Chauncey made that
Yeah.
observation. I says, you know what? You're right, because when I read things sometimes, maybe I'll start reading. I'm not interested in that. I'll go to the next one. Oh,
Right.
I like this one. I'm going to read more.
Yeah, no, that's where they are. Michelle, I need a picture for the website.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You want to send me that? Other than that, I think everybody's up there now on the website except for my daughter because she's really busy right now. Last time she told me she had 100 papers to correct. No, that's because you decided to be psychology. We didn't have that problem in PE, did we, Larry? We didn't have all the
Throw out the ball. Bring it back when you're done.
Yeah.
3.5 big grades.
Put them away. Okay. All right, guys. I
All
gotta
right,
go.
that was really good. So 2 weeks from tonight, is that good
Yep.
for everybody?
Yep, works for me.
Hey, Larry, you're going to be on the first part of your movement development stuff, okay?
If I get it all together, how's that sound?
You better get it all together, you know? Don't make me fly to Minnesota and
Yeah.
put you on the snow or something, you know?
So when's the next one?
Oh, we have
My calendar says 2 weeks, so let me say that would be the see, the 7th of March or April.
April, you mean?
April.
7th? That good for everybody?
Yeah. Works.
Okay. This thing's recorded. I'll figure out how to move it over to something when I get, with Nick, and we'll just go from there. Thanks, everybody. I think we had this is a good one. I think this was
Nice
good.
job, Grant.
Very good.
Thanks,
Very
Grant.
good.
Very
Thank you.
good. Very well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, Pat, stay on a
Yes.
minute when everybody
Okay.
gets off. I want to ask you a
Absolutely.
question.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye.
Thanks.
See you
guys.
guys.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
Stop recording.
Pause recording.